Him is one of those movies that looks great on paper, but sadly it just didn't turn out too well, making it one of the biggest disappointments of the year for me. So let's talk about everything this movie did right, but more importantly, what went wrong. So in this movie, we follow Tyriq Withers' character Cam, who is crowned the next great quarterback, but once he goes off to train with his idol Isaiah White, played by Marlon Wayans, things take a dark turn as he learns what it's going to take to truly be the best. But with that said, as always, before we get started, if you're new here, my name is Aaron and I talk all things movies and TV, but really mostly movies, so if you're into that, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hit that like button as well. And of course, if you've already seen the movie, let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments, but without further ado, let's talk about the movie Him. Starting things off with the good, and of course the first thing I have here is both Marlon Wayans and Tyriq Withers. Now, hands down, the best part of this movie was the performance that we got from Marlon Wayans. We are used to seeing him in more comedic roles, but in this we got to see a whole different side of him, and he did a really good job. His performance was unhinged and just very haunting in a way as well, and his character is considered the GOAT in this movie, and he will sacrifice and do anything to make sure it stays that way. He would go back and forth in this movie between being completely crazy and unhinged to being a completely normal guy that seems pretty chill for the most part. And that's what made his performance and also his character feel so unsettling when he was on screen. Then you combined him with Tyriq Withers, who is someone that I'm not too familiar with, but he did a great job in this movie, and them together really carried the bulk of this movie. Tyriq's character is this up-and-coming rookie who, as I said, has been crowned as the next GOAT, and through his character we see this pretty dark deconstruction of what it takes to truly be the best, and I think he portrays that through his performance very well. But on top of those two, I also want to give a big shout out to Julia Fox, who outside of Marlon and Tyriq was one of the best performances in this movie, but it was Marlon and Tyriq who were really a big positive for this movie. The other thing I have for the good is the visuals, and it is no question that this is a gorgeous looking film, and I am not saying that lightly. I don't think there is a single frame in this movie that wasn't interesting. There were times in this movie where I just wanted to pause certain scenes and just look at the blocking within them because the imagery within them was so striking. This was a very stylized film, and that was a big reason why this movie felt so unique, on top of it also being a completely original idea. It just seemed like every shot was meticulously thought out, and if I was basing this movie strictly on the visuals, I would be calling it one of the best of the year, but unfortunately I am not, which brings me into the so-so for this movie. The first thing I have for the so-so here are the themes and the ideas that this movie introduces. Now, on a surface level, this movie is about what one must sacrifice in order to be the best, but it is also much deeper than that, or at least it tries to be. This movie has no shortage of metaphors and symbols, especially in the religious concept. I mean, it did not try to hide it at all. The main football team of this movie is called the Saviors. But at the end of the day, with all of those themes and ideas, and don't get me wrong, these were great themes, great ideas that I think they brought to the table, and I understood what they were trying to do with them, but they just didn't really go anywhere with them, and it remained surface level. So once we got to what was supposed to be this big, meaningful ending, it just felt empty for me. All those themes, metaphors, and symbols looked phenomenal on paper, but they just weren't executed all that well. So for me, it just made it feel like this movie thought it was a little bit smarter than it actually was. The other thing I have for the so-so is that as far as the horror element in this, there just wasn't much of it. This was more of a psychological thriller that had some very interesting football drills, if I do say so myself. And I guess along with the horror element of this film, I wish we got a little bit more from the football aspect as well. Being a former college football player myself, I really like the ideas they brought up when it came to football in this movie. I just wanted, and I guess expected, a little bit more from that aspect of the film. This movie was kind of jumping back and trying to balance those two elements of the film, and in doing that, at least in my opinion, they didn't didn't give us enough of either. And finally, getting into the bad, and the only thing I have here is my big main problem with this movie, and that is, if I had to sum this thing all up and describe it to you, it would fall in that category of movies that is style over substance. Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful film to look at, but outside of its overlying theme of sacrifice, it doesn't really go anywhere else. This is something that usually doesn't bother me all that much, but since this movie was clearly trying to be much deeper than it actually was, in this case, it sadly does bother me. This movie serves you up something great on the outside, but just isn't executed all that well, so at least in my opinion, you leave this thing feeling pretty empty. So for my final thoughts, yes, this movie has its positives. The performances by Marlon Wayans and Tyriq Withers carried the load of this thing, and the visuals are stunning and unique. But when it comes to the substance and execution, there wasn't much there. So for my personal tier list, this movie will go in the average for me and is something that you can wait to see on streaming. Those are my thoughts on him. Be sure to let me know what you thought of the movie down in the comments, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, God bless, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.